Welcome back everyone to VFX Rendering, where we explore creative techniques in 3D and VFX. Today, we're diving into a fun little Cinema 4D experiment inspired by a tutorial from Derek Kirk, also known as Effectatron, who shared a great video on his YouTube channel showing how to easily create a clay pot in C4D. Of course, as with most things in 3D, there are many different ways artists can achieve the same result. In today's video, we're going to explore a slightly different workflow. We'll create an animated pottery-style object in Cinema 4D using the Spline deformer, together with the Spline to Mesh generator. This method is simple, flexible, and gives you a lot of control over how the pot forms and evolves over time. We've got a lot to explore, so let's jump right in. Let's start by creating the foundation of our animation. First, add a line generator to the scene. Set the axis to Y. Give it a length of around 60 centimeters and increase the point count to about 60 points. You can find this generator in the node library under the Spline section. This spline will act as our base structure, the core path that will later deform and animate to create the pottery effect. Next, we'll introduce some organic movement by adding a displacer deformer. Set the type to intensity, change the direction to planar, and set the orientation to +X. Then, increase the height to around 35 centimeters. This will push the spline sideways and create variations along its shape. Now switch to the Shading tab and apply a noise shader. This is where things start to become more interesting. Set the space to UV 2D, so the noise behaves consistently along the spline. Increase the global scale to about 350% to create broader variations, and add a bit of motion by setting the animation speed to around 0.33 with a loop period of 10. To fine-tune the look, adjust the brightness to about -5% and contrast to around 10%. These small tweaks help shape the noise, so the movement feels more natural and less chaotic. With that in place, let's add another layer of deformation using the electric spline modifier applied to the base spline. First, disable the resample option, then set the displacement to around 25 centimeters. Reduce the relative scale on the Y-axis to about 50% to keep the deformation more controlled vertically. Inside the noise settings, increase the animation speed to roughly 10% so the motion evolves over time. Then adjust Modify Pivot from to about 15%, which subtly shifts where the deformation begins along the spline. Finally, go to the Fix Start and End section to stabilize parts of the spline. Set Blend Start and Blend End to around 15%, with start at 30% and end at 65%. This helps anchor portions of the spline while still allowing the middle section to move more freely. Now, if you press play, you'll see the base spline begin to flow and shift dynamically, driven by the animated noise we just applied. This flexible, evolving spline will become the core motion that drives the entire pottery animation in the next steps. Now that our base spline is animated and moving organically, it's time to turn that motion into an actual 3D object. For this step, we'll use the Spline to Mesh generator to transform the spline into geometry. First, add a lathe object. This will revolve the profile around the spline and generate the main shape of our pottery. Once applied, you'll immediately see a clay pot forming and following the movement of the base spline we created earlier. If you want the surface to look smoother and more detailed, feel free to increase the subdivision settings. Next, let's give the pot some realistic thickness. Add a thicken generator and set the thickness to about 1 centimeter. This prevents the object from being just a hollow surface and makes it feel more like a solid ceramic form. After that, place everything under a connect object, so all the generated geometry is combined into a single continuous mesh. To improve the look of the pot's opening, we'll add a bevel deformer. This helps round out the rim and makes the edge feel softer and more natural, similar to a real handcrafted pottery piece. Set the offset mode to radial and increase the subdivision to around 3, so the rim becomes smooth and nicely curved. At this point, the basic pottery animation is already working. But to make it more interesting, try experimenting with different noise types in the modifiers that drive the spline movement. Each noise pattern will produce a slightly different motion and deformation, giving the pot a unique personality. Don't hesitate to play around with the parameters. Adjust the noise scale, animation speed, displacement, or subdivision levels until you find a look that feels just right. That brings us to the end of this tutorial. In this video, we've gone through the process of creating an animated pottery effect in Cinema 4D using the Spline deformer, together with the Spline to Mesh generator. Starting from a simple spline, we added procedural deformation and noise to create natural motion, then converted that movement into a fully formed 3D clay pot. This technique is simple but incredibly flexible, and it opens up many creative possibilities for procedural modeling and animation in Cinema 4D. Try experimenting with different noise types, deformation settings, or spline shapes to create your own unique variations of the effect. If you found this tutorial helpful, feel free to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned for more tutorials from VFXRendering. And if you have any questions or ideas for future tutorials, don't hesitate to leave a comment below. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next tutorial.